Metro Talk. I'm Kent Shuffle. Thanks for being with us. Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph, is alongside. Welcome, Jim.
Hello, Kent.
And Sam Stem, the general manager and president of WBGZ Radio, is here as well. Welcome, Sam.
Glad to be here, Kent.
Sam, Circuit Judge William Mudge has revealed that a Chicago public relations firm has gotten involved in a water pollution case here in Madison County and evidently had a PR firm from Chicago involved, and that PR firm was trying to paint Madison County through different documents, through different publications, as a judicial hellhole, trying to use that term that's been used in the past. Mudge said that they were trying to call Madison County a source of jackpot justice. Was Mudge correct in releasing this information?
Well, I don't know if he's correct or not, but, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, and, it wouldn't be the first time Madison County's been called a judicial hellhole. It wouldn't be the first time that anybody's accused the county of being a source of jackpot justice. And I guess you almost have to be a law professor to be able to scope out the law and figure out if what the judge did was right or not. And I guess, in trying to read between the lines, his intent was just basically, let's have all the cards laid on the table here. If we've got a PR firm out there trying to release information that in some way is going to affect the outcome, well, let's just put it all out there for everybody to see and hear. From a legal standpoint, I can't tell you. And if you look at the history of the appeal on almost any case, even the appellate courts don't agree, and that's why we have both state and federal Supreme Courts, is because ultimately somebody has to make the final decision. So legally, was he right? I don't know. Some might say, well, it's really just up to the judge to preside over the case and to hear the evidence and then take it from there, not get involved in PR firms and defense strategy and all of that. But quite frankly, I think the Madison County court system lately has had a little bit better reputation than it has in the past. And in fact, there are some other venues around the state that are maybe competing to overtake Madison County for the title of judicial hellhole. But nonetheless, it's no secret that many cases over the years have ended up in Madison County courts simply because it was deemed to be beneficial to the plaintiff to have the cases heard here. And beyond that, whether Mudge is acting correctly or not, I'll leave to others to decide. Maybe Jim knows.
Jim, it's probably not the first time that a PR firm or a PR representative has been involved in a case in Madison County, but apparently the first time it's actually come to light where a judge has said, hey, this is going on. Was Mudge right in releasing this information?
I don't know if it's right or wrong. I don't know how it affects the case, frankly, in a class action status. It's still going to be up to the judge to preside over the case and decide what happens. As Sam said, this is not the first time that Madison County has been kind of plastered with that reputation or that name. That reputation had to have been earned. That wasn't somebody set in a Chicago office or New York office and say, let's pick out this Madison County, we'll call them a judicial hellhole and start filing all of our cases there. This was a reputation that was earned very well. We have a multi-million-dollar county building that was paid for on the interest that Philip Morris paid on a judgment bond against them in the largest tobacco lawsuit in the history of the country. The entire court system in Madison County particularly, but certainly in the state of Illinois, was built on attorneys suing railroads. Our 16th president was one of them in his earlier career, by the way. because Illinois says that if you do business anywhere in that state, you have tracks that touch the state, then therefore you can sue the railroad in that state regardless of where the accident happened. And that's kind of how the court system grew up in and around Madison County. It was already a judicial hellhole according to the railroads in Chicago at that time, but it certainly followed it down here. I guess really all this is kind of a shot across the bow of the PR firm or plaintiff's attorneys saying, okay, I caught you. You're out there, trying to label us a judicial hellhole. I don't know that it's going to, or it shouldn't affect his ruling, Mudge's ruling, one way or the other, but busted, I caught you, and we're not gonna stand for those shenanigans. We are still, I think, in the top 5 in the country, according to lawsuit abuse watchers. So we haven't fallen far from that #1 position. But for us to live down that reputation is going to take a whole lot more than just Mudge saying, I caught you. So what if he did? Or, next thing we're going to say is, okay, we're not going to listen to a wrongful death suit or a personal injury suit from Brown and Crouppen because they advertise on TV. There's a slippery slope as well. It is legal, and I guess it's legal as far as that's concerned for the PR firm to try to renew that moniker for Madison County that's a hellhole.
I suspect the PR firm got the idea from reading newspaper editorials over the years. Because, it's not an original idea by the PR firm. Many newspapers have editorialized on the problem as well. So,
I think they were listening to Friday edition of Let's Talk.
But my point is, I don't think the judge is going to have much impact in ordering newspapers to quit writing editorials.
Yeah.
Is it a problem if a PR firm's involved?
Well, there are PR firms involved all the time in cases like this. PR firms place the ads looking for plaintiffs for class action suits. That's exactly what they do.
And then you take it beyond that, you've got jury research and all of that goes on. And no, there's no way any judge is going to ever stop any of that.
We need to take a break. We'll have more right after this.
Hi, I'm Audrey Lucchese, and I'm from Alton, Illinois. I love music, and that's why I came to Lewis & Clark. It's been an amazing experience here at Lewis & Clark, working with students that are so talented, coming from all over the area, and they work so hard to follow their dreams. The music faculty at Lewis & Clark they're fantastic, and they're there every step of the way to push you to follow your dreams. One of the unique opportunities that I have had at Lewis & Clark is being able to record my own music with a fellow student here. Being able to record our music has opened doors for us in the music industry. My long-term goal is to finish here at Lewis & Clark and then to transfer to a 4-year school and finish my degree in music performance. I would recommend Lewis & Clark to another student because it is definitely a great place to get started and it can open so many doors for you.
Big dreams and good grades aren't enough to get into college. There are actual steps you need to take. Finding someone who can help is the first and most important. For the next steps, go to knowhowtogo.org.
You're watching Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel, Sam Stem, and Jim Schrader are here. Jim, Illinois Treasurer Dan Rutherford says it's time to get the courts involved on whether or not we can create another pension system in Illinois. Rutherford is of the feeling that we need to reduce the benefits for current employees, but some people are saying, whoop, wait a minute, that would be unconstitutional. Rutherford says, let's give it a shot and let the courts decide. Is he taking the right approach?
I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a treasurer, but I don't know how it could be deemed unconstitutional when you have new people, potentially new people coming into a program. And,
But these were for existing.
no,
Okay.
I understand. That could be a problem with constitutionality. If you were hired under X plan and there was no provision in your hiring that said this plan is subject to change, then you could say, well, wait a minute, we can't arbitrarily change it now. In the private sector, and we all know government doesn't work like the private sector, so in the private sector, almost all offers or hire or a handbook said, your insurance can be subject to change, there can be changes in the 401k plan, there can be all kinds of, and you spell those out in advance and say, if you are still willing to accept the position, therefore you go. The point would be in this case is if those government workers, state workers and elected officials went in saying this is the plan, there is no provision for changing it, and now in the middle of things we want to change it, then you're going to run into a constitutional problem, potentially. I like the idea of new hires going forward. To me, that's a much cleaner slate, much easier to accomplish, and you say, okay, anybody that's elected after January the 1st, 2012, or anyone who accepts a position with any state agency after January 1st now goes on the new program. That's a lot cleaner, that's a lot easier, and you don't run into potentially a constitutional court fight in which I suspect the end result is you can't change it because there is no provision for changing it. You can change it for new hires. Rutherford is a treasurer, and I guess some could say that he's not a politician in the traditional sense of the word, in that he has bean counting responsibilities rather than bean spending abilities. But this can be a cop-out anytime an elected official says, well, I don't know if this is legal or not, we'll let the courts settle it. I don't think that's necessarily the right way to deal with it too. You try to anticipate those problems, and why run into a protracted court fight and all of the expense if you don't have to? Why not just go ahead and try to evaluate it up front using the best and the brightest that we have and say, okay, we can't change the program that's on the books. Let's change the program for the new people coming in.
Sam, Illinois Treasurer Dan Rutherford says, let's have the pension system go to court. He says, let's try to change the pensions for the existing employees, the current employees, see what the courts decide as to whether or not it's constitutional. Is that the right approach?
I think it is. On this one, I'll differ with Jim, because I think ultimately Rutherford's sitting there figuring this thing's going to go to court anyway. So why go to all the time and trouble and expense of implementing a program that somebody's going to challenge in court, and then finding out only after we've set it all up that the courts say that it's not legal or it's not constitutional. So let's go ahead and get the court's imprimatur right from the very beginning and figure out whether we can do this or not, and if we can, fine, full steam ahead. If not, then we can adjust before we've set up a system that down the road some court's going to tell us is unconstitutional, and we have to trash the whole thing and start over. So from that standpoint, it might be wise on the treasurer's part to say, okay, there are questions here. I don't have the answer. I can ask 12 different people, and 6 will say one thing, 6 will say another. Let's ask the people who have the final say in the end, and that is the court, to tell us whether we're moving down the right road or not. So from that standpoint, Rutherford has my blessing for what that's worth, which is not very much.
Does Rutherford want his pension changed?
Good question.
Would it pertain to him?
I doubt that he does, not if it's,
Exactly. I mean, that's, why don't you step forward and say, I don't need the pension, I'll just forego it. And you taxpayers can, divvy up the money, or we'll play it out the other way. I just don't think it will fly, especially since the very judges that would be deciding the constitutionality of this, in many cases, came out of the elected ranks and, by the way, are in that pension system, thank you very much. They're not going to probably change their own sandbox if they can avoid it.
And you bring up a very good point that in business, the pensions can change and the rules of the game can change. The interesting point here is that for the school employees, the teachers, the municipal employees, the city workers, other benefits can change. Their insurance can be lessened. They can have to pay a bigger deductible. Pension's the only one that seems to be falling under this constitutional question.
Well, so many of the others fall under collective bargaining agreements, which is why I think 90% of the state employees are union members. They fall under bargaining agreements, and that's how they hash out how much you're going to pay for insurance, which, by the way, government employees still have the best medical care of anybody in the United States. My suspicion is that because medical benefits is a short term and can be negotiated from contract to contract, where pension is a long term where you're vesting in year after year. That would be my guess why there would be a difference.
We need to take a break. We'll have more right after this.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the radio broadcasting program in WLCA with Mike Lemons.
Have you ever listened to your favorite radio station or your favorite disc jockey and say, I could do that? Or maybe you're the type of person who says, I could never do something like that. Well, with the help of first-year mass comm student John, we're going to show you just how easy it is. Each voice intro starts with talking about the band that just played, and we add a station identifier. Next, you want to offer some information that may be of interest to your audience. And finally, tell the listeners what the next song is, who sings it, followed by another station identifier. John will do one live now.
Silver Sun Pickup Substitution on WLCA. The Big Pink released their debut album called A Brief History of Love. This single is off that album. It's The Big Pink with Dominoes. It's on College Radio's Best 89.9.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
What's that? I don't know. Something I kind of made. Ooh, what's it do?
What do I do? Well, thanks for asking. I ring my bell and I like to dance. What do I do? Well, thanks for asking.
Ow! Yeah, it still needs a little work.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org.
Sounds like you could use some Van Gogurt. It's fortified with arch-rich nutrients to improve your math and reading skills. Catch!
Van Gogurt, thanks. So what's the deal with your ear?
Always with the ear, huh?
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
This is Metro Talk. Sam Stems here. Jim Schrader's alongside. I'm Kent Shuffle. Sam, Illinois Senator Terry Link says we have too many taxing bodies in Illinois. He says we have more than 7,000 taxing bodies in the state now, and we need to reduce that number. Is he correct?
well, it sure sounds like too many, doesn't it? I mean, I never stopped to think about it before, but when you say there are 7,000 taxing bodies, just on the face of it, it sounds like way too many. But, I think maybe that number is skewed a little bit, because when you start talking about how many counties and how many municipalities and all that, just stop and think where you live, and when you get your property tax bill alone, how many different entities are on that bill, and then take that times every community You know, so everybody has their own library, and everybody has their own school district, and everybody has their own county, and everybody has their own municipality, and there might be a fire protection district there, and a community college district, and on and on. So to say, well, we need to reduce them, well, that's pretty simple sounding on the face of it, but how do you do that? Okay, you can't be a taxing body anymore. Well, that's my fire protection district. They need to tax me because I want the fire put out at my house when it catches on fire. You know, no, you can't take my community college away from me because when my kids need a place to go to school, you know, I need that. I think probably you could reduce the number of taxing bodies, but not terribly significantly. We've talked here before, I think, about, you know, where you have coterminous townships with a city or a village. Well, maybe you could eliminate the township, let the village or the city absorb those duties, and now you've eliminated a taxing body. But you can't do that in every case. So what percentage of that 7,000 could be eliminated? Probably not a very big percentage. And then that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get rid of the tax, because somebody's going to take over the responsibility of that taxing body, and they're going to need the revenue in order to provide the service. So in the long run, I think Senator Link, it sounds good, but it's probably not terribly practical.
Jim, Senator Terry Link says we have too many taxing bodies in Illinois. He says we have 7,000. That's more than we need. Is he on the right track?
It's a great soundbite. It was just exactly what Sam said. It sounds good. So you say, okay, we have a goal to eliminate 75% of the taxing bodies by the year 2014. Okay. Then who's going to pick up those services for which the taxing bodies tax? Those are not going to go away. You know, I pay taxes in Village of Bethalto. I pay Lewis and Clark Community College tax. I may pay Madison County tax. I pay school tax. I pay property tax. We got it. Each of those counts towards the 7,000. But if somehow or another they said, okay, the Village of Bethalto is not going to tax anymore. Mayor Steve Bryant says, we're going to turn that over to the state's authority to tax, collect the tax, and they will now pay the mayor's salary and the upkeep of the city building, and they'll pay the street department, and they'll pay the lights, and they'll pay. Somebody still has to collect that money. This makes a great soundbite. This is terrible, you're overtaxed, you got 7,000 taxing bodies. But, oh yeah, you do want those services too, right? So it's not gonna really change anything. I personally don't like the thought of eliminating those 7,000 taxing bodies and sending all of the money to Springfield and let them sort it out. Somehow or another, I suspect that the street sweeping in the Bethalto probably wouldn't be a priority if somebody in Springfield was deciding how much money went back to the Village of Bethalto. It makes for a great soundbite. It makes it sound like a shocking number that should cause people to rise up and revolt. But if you want the services, somebody has to pay for it.
Sam, the Illinois State Board of Education says more money is needed for bus transportation. They're saying that the districts are suffering. They need more money for transportation. Considering the number of personnel cuts that have taken place in area districts, do we need to be focused on bus transportation?
Well, unfortunately, we have to, because years ago we got away from the neighborhood school concept. And that was in part tied up in desegregating schools. It was in part tied up in, it became obvious in some districts that it was less expensive to have, you know, centralized schools, because now you didn't, you know, you could combine certain services. Instead of having a speech therapist in every building, you could have one in the larger enrollment center and cut costs that way. So whether it makes sense or not, if we can't get the kids to school, then, you know, I guess we could have more personnel cuts, because you have fewer kids coming to school. You don't need as many teachers and janitors and cafeteria workers and all that. But the school systems that we have morphed into now rely upon bus transportation to get the kids to where they need to be. Back when I was a kid,
Walking both uphill, up both ways with cardboard in your
Well,
shoes and snow on the ground.
I went to Catholic school, so we
They
had,
hadn't invented buses yet.
we had to go a lot further. You know, the kids that went to public school, their schools were within a couple blocks of the house. You know, where I lived, within 3 blocks, we had a grade school, and within about 5 blocks, we had a junior high. And, you know, our Catholic school was 1.5 miles away. We had a lot longer walk, and nobody rode a bus anywhere, public school, private school. So, you know, the bottom line is they're going to have to bite the bullet and figure out how to get it done, because I don't think anybody's going to go out and start rebuilding neighborhood schools. And most of them have been torn down or sold, or, you know, are so dilapidated you couldn't use them if you wanted to.
Well, I did walk to school as well, and we weren't rich like you. I didn't go to Catholic school, so we didn't have that extra money for the tuition. And I went to a small school district. I went to Madison. And my junior high school was about 1.5 miles. So I understand it was about 3/4 of a mile to my grade school, and my high school was, I don't know, maybe 3/8 of a mile, maybe 1/2 mile.
You must have lived in rural Madison.
Yeah, we lived, that's exactly. Well, it's just the schools were built on the other side of town when they were being built, because they were old. You know, my junior high school was built in the early 1900s. It's gone now. My grade school was built in the about 20s. It's gone now. So, you know, that wasn't uncommon. We also decided along the way, in addition to closing the neighborhood schools, that we had a liability issue with kids being, you know, having to walk that far. They might get run over, they might get hit, whatever. And we expanded busing for a couple of different reasons. Liability was one of them. We closed the neighborhood schools, and I think then it was like anything over 1 mile and you were bused, where Sam and I would have both still been walking at that point in time. But that's not going to change. We got more and more school districts that are talking about consolidating, or, you know, going to a K through 4 and then a 5 through 9 and then a high school, consolidated high school. It's just going to continue to increase the need for busing. At the same time, the state's saying, we don't have the money, you're going to have to sort it out.
Just think, kids nowadays will be able to tell their kids, I had to walk 2 blocks uphill both ways to the bus stop.
That's going to do it for this edition of Metro Talk. It's gone too far. I'm Kent Scheffel. Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph, has been here, along with Sam Stem, the president and general manager of WBGC. We'll see you next week.